Down in the dark bowels of the Monolith Society is a free Corundum Suit. The Corundum Suit is apparently really good. So I got a lot of pushback when I rated this thing low in my first tier list for armor. And in my defense, you can only get the Corundum Suit if you get into Pripyat early and you buy it from the trader in the cultural center, or when you are 2/3 through the game, like 2/3 of the way through the game for the main quest. But here is the Corundum Suit. Now, when you're 2/3 through the main quest, this is a minor spoiler, so click off or watch this later. Eventually, a specific base, I'll just show you the location, I won't really say what happens. A specific base, the people move, I won't really say what happens, but this is the location that you get it. It's 2/3 of the way through the main quest. This is where you get the free one. The other one can be bought. Now, the fact that it can be bought, there's pros and cons to that. One of the big pros to that is that you can always get it because early Pripyat jump is still in the game. One of the cons, though, is competitive suits that are for free, that don't require early Pripyat access or knowledge of that jump, can be acquired as soon as you enter the main region of the game. So it's really kind of like an end game suit that you can only really get if you shell out like 57k to buy it from a trader. So let's look at the base stats on it. So 10 kilogram weight, 3 artifact slots, and at 100% durability, we're looking at almost 1 in thermal, electrical, chemical, a little bit below for electrical and chemical, radiation protection of 2.5, psi protection of 1, and physical protection of 3.5. So the defensive stats on it are decent. For artifact farming, it's definitely not the best thing because of the lack of good elemental protection or like hazard protection. But for combat, it has good combat protection, and the 3 artifact slots is decent. For upgrades for the Corundum Suit, we have 2 additional containers getting us to 5. And then without blueprints, you can get a lead container and then a diffusion container for 2 lead/diffusion containers for your artifacts. Now, this is pretty decent because some of the other suits do require artifacts, but considering how late in the game you can get this, there are pros and cons. Like if you want to dump 50k into this and just buy it right away by doing an early Pripyat jump, you can do that. Now, if you're doing an early Pripyat jump, there's just like mad exosuits and exoskeletons hanging around in Pripyat for free, so it's kind of hard to justify doing in my humble opinion. But we have the artifact containers in the slots, and then we have a decision to make. So radio protection, then there's a stamina regen or a carry capacity 10% increase. Now of the 2 of them, it's really up to you. I'd rather have the 10% increase, but stamina regen is fine. And then you have a psi protection for 27k. I don't think this is worth it. Look at how little it really helps. I would skip that. It's just going to increase the value of your suit, which means more expensive repairs. Same thing for some of these things. The buffs from these, like these percentages are good, but because the base value is so low and percentages scale up based off the magnitude of the initial value, these aren't really worth it at all. I would skip these completely. Similarly, it's just going to spike up the value of your suit. This is really a combat suit that you should not be using in artifact running because it has bad thermal, electrical, and chemical bases. So I would skip those. And then something that is worth it though, in the head section of the suits, you can get 20% physical, which boosts it to around 4 from 3.5. And then you can get wear resistance, which is always good on armor. Weight reduction, which is nice, but it's optional. You can skip it if you want. And then we also have another physical 20%, putting you at 4.5 physical protection. And then, of course, we have the suppressor, which I installed. We'll max this out just to show like what the stats would look like. So here are max stats. And instead of getting stamina regen, we went with the weight. So it maxes thermal protection at like 1.5. Electrical is like 1.2. Chemical is 1.1. Radiation is like 3.2. Psi protection is like 1.5, a little bit under that. And then physical of 4.5. So in terms of overall defensive stats, it's decent for combat. But outside of combat, like for artifacts and for elemental, environmental damage, not as good. The radiation is good. The psi protection is a little bit lower than its competitors, especially considering you can truly only get it when you can get other endgame things, or when you're 2/3 of the way through the main quest. because in order to get back to where I was, the area you go to has to change. So that's like the major thing. Let's do our burn down. So right now it's at 100% durability. We're just gonna get it down to 80 roughly, and then see how much it costs to repair fully upgraded. All right, let's see where we're at. We're at 93, still have a ways to go. Let's eat this for a minute. Very delicious lava. Tastes very good. I think we're probably there. 67%. Alright, let's just get it to 50. Let's make it even. Nice even number. Let's see if we're there. 60%. Alright, 60 is good. 60 is good. We can just divide the repair cost by half to get our 20% value. For the repair cost, so assuming that we were doing 80% instead of 60, we're just going to divide this by 2, so it's roughly 15k for a 20% repair. For 40% repair, we're looking at 30k, so we can just divide it by 2 to get that value. So it's a little bit more expensive than other suits that are non-exosuits, non-exoskeletons to repair. Now, you do not have to run all these extra mods, which will make it cheaper and more competitive. I would skip the entire shoulder tree to keep the cost down. There's really no benefit. It barely gives you any increase in thermal, electrical, chemical. It's to the point where the damage reduction is going to be almost identical, but it just spikes up your repair costs and wastes your coupons. So I would skip those completely. For this tree, you can go radio protection into carry capacity and then skip the side protection. For the same reason, it just spikes up your repair costs. It doesn't really give you much benefit. The base side protection is so low that going from like 1.3 to 1.4 is barely going to do anything, so I'd skip that. The suppressor is always good because it's super cheap. It's like 375 or something like that, so that barely increases repair costs. And then for the head section, like where the filter is, definitely get physical protection and wear resistance. You could skip weight reduction 1, this will help keep repair costs down, and then I would go with physical protection. The main point of this suit is that for no blueprints, you can get 5 artifact containers, 2 lead containers, and then good physical protection. And that'll help you keep your repair costs lower, because once you start getting into higher levels of lead containers, you end up running exosuits, exoskeletons, things like this, which tend to max out physical protection, as well as have substantially higher thermal, electrical, chemical, as well as radiation and psi. So overall, if I were to give the suit a rating, I'm going to give it, I think, like a 7 out of 10. It's not bad. It's quite good stats-wise. It's just that in order to get it without early Pripyat jump, you have to be 2/3 of the way through the main quest. And that is a lot of playtime. That's like roughly 20 to 40 hours playtime, depending on how many side quests you do. So, like, if you do early Pripyat jump, there's like 7 or so exosuits just laying around that you can get to for free. So if you were to do early Pripyat jump to buy, I'll show where you can buy it. You buy it from Bison here. I think he always sells one. Yeah, here it is right here. So you can buy it. It costs you a cool 64k, but you can literally walk down the road, like right out these doors. There's a grenade throw in this building, like this way, like literally a minute away from here, that gets you Ruby Exoskeleton. So it's kind of hard to justify running that. The stats are good on it though, and if you like the way it looks, or if you just want to run it because you think it's cool, it is good, it will perform, it is endgame ready. It does get you 5 artifact slots and 2 lead containers, which is more than enough to beat the game with. You could honestly beat the game with junk gear, but this is good armor. If it had better availability, I would bump it up. Like, if you could get one early without doing Pripyat jump, I would say that matters. But the fact that you have to pay for it in Pripyat, if it was just kind of laying around in Pripyat, I'd probably give it like an 8.5. But because you have to buy it for 64k, that kind of hurts it. All right, good armor, just the availability could be better. That's it for now. Definitely subscribe if you enjoyed this or found this interesting, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.